it's difficult for me to get into a television show like Star Trek Discovery. I mean, I look online and people are stating that this should be a great show that I get into because I've liked previous iterations of Star Trek. And, off and on that's true. I think I like some of the series better than others. Mm-hmm. But, like, it's been a while since I've watched that first season. But as I recall, like, the series revolves around this character called Michael Burnham. And in the first episode, Michael Burnham, they, if I'm recalling correctly, the starship that Michael Burnham was on detected this alien ship that was near one of their satellites or something. And so her captain, Captain Georgiou, who we later found out was like Michael Burnham's mother figure, and also her captain, like gave her a mission to go out and just do a look-see around to see what was going on there. In fact, Georgiou specifically told Michael Burnham to not, like, don't engage with anybody, if I'm remembering correctly. It was just go out there, do a quick look-see, and then come back.
Yes, it was supposed to be a reconnaissance mission.
And so, as I'm remembering, so she went out to this thing. She was like on some jetpack or something. And then she decided like something was interesting that she wanted to check out. So even though she was told not to approach just to take a look-see, she approached this thing. And she ran into this Klingon, which I think was called the Torchbearer. And then they got into a little disagreement in some like spacesuit fight. And then Michael Burnham ended up killing this Torchbearer. And then Michael Burnham went back to her ship. And later on, like, her and Captain Georgiou had a disagreement about what to do with the Klingons. Where Michael Burnham wanted to, like, attack first. And Georgiou was like, well, we don't want to do that yet. And so Michael Burnham, like, got... Georgiou, I think, and her went into this back room to talk, like Captain's Ready room. And then Michael Burnham, like, assaulted her. So this was, again, her surrogate mother figure and her captain. She tried to do that the Vulcan neck pinch on her, and I guess knocked her out. And then she came out and tried to do her own thing to start the firefight. And the problem that I have is that, so after all of this, she was put into prison, I think, for like 6 months. The sentence wasn't, I don't think, for 6 months, but...
I believe she received a life term for what she did. Yes.
Okay. So, like, it looked like, okay, that's where she's going with this. And the reason it bothers me, and I think that whole thing was justified, the sentencing, I mean, was she was told not to engage anybody or to enter a certain area. She was just told to look-see around. Then she assaulted her captain. Then she tried to start a firefight. And then this whole war broke out because of her and what happened with the Torchbearer. And I don't think they ever said how many people died, but it had to be like at least 1,000, possibly 1,000,000. I mean,
it had to be millions because this involved the Federation versus the Klingons.
Yeah, like so, the whole fleets.
Yes. I mean, millions of people, civilians, had to have died because of what they did. So, well, because of what she did in particular.
She didn't listen to orders, and then she assaulted her captain,
yes.
And then tried to start the fight earlier, in addition to killing this Klingon Torchbearer, which she didn't even know. She wasn't even supposed to be in a situation where she would have engaged with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if she did get a life sentence, if that's what the sentence was, like, okay. But then it turns out, like, it seemed like 6 months later, that's when Lorca and the Discovery ship, like, he pulled her out of prison because he wanted her on the ship.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm remembering, like, later on in that season, you find out, well, that was actually Mirror Lorca, well, their version of a Mirror Lorca, and that he wanted Michael Burnham because of the Michael Burnham in the Mirror Universe. Like there was some weird.
They were lovers.
Yeah.
Yes.
If I'm remembering correctly, she was given like an observation, like science officer or something role on this discovery. I'm not sure she was actually officially back in Starfleet. She was just like a science person. And then that whole season went on. And then because of her heroics, or whatever they said she did, at the end of that season, she was giving this speech about like how, yes, this is what it's like to be in Starfleet. Now, first of all, I already established like what I didn't like about her assaulting her captain, her starting that war, her indirectly being responsible for all these killed people, although she was directly responsible for killing the torchbearer.
Mm-hmm.
And she got her commission back, she got her rank back, and she's giving this big speech about what it's like to be in Starfleet. And based on the flashbacks that we saw, I don't even think Michael Burnham went to Starfleet Academy.
Yeah, I believe you're correct.
Because I think she was dropped off. I mean,
Sarek dropped her off with Giorgio. Yes.
And she was like a gifted student in the Vulcan Science Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was just dropped off on Giorgio's ship. The Shenzhou, I think that's what Giorgio's ship was called.
Yep.
And, like, so as far as I can tell, she's never been in Starfleet. So, again, the problems with the stuff she did, starting the war, 6 months accountability, because she runs out of a hospital with some burning babies, then all of a sudden, she is forgiven for these crimes, never has to go back to prison to serve for an attempted mutiny, not following orders, murdering the torchbearer. Like, all that's just swept under the rug as, like, no big deal.
Yeah.
And I've heard people suggest that I'm not being fair to Michael Burnham because in Star Trek Voyager, the first episode, that Tom Paris had a similar start where at the beginning of I think it's the Caretaker episode, the first episode, like he was at this penal colony that Janeway came and recruited him to go after the Maquis.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I remember, like, we eventually find out, like, it's kind of not specific, but apparently Tom Paris is a pilot, and I think he was doing some sort of shuttle run with 3 people on board, and he didn't say what it was, but somehow pilot negligence is what caused these 3 people to die.
Yes.
And if I'm remembering, like, I don't know if they specifically said this, but I kind of got the feeling like he was going to get off the hook. But then I think him and Harry Kim had a conversation where he was telling the story, and he said that his conscience got to him, and that he actually fessed up to what happened.
Yes. He said that he had falsified the records, and he'd actually gotten away with it. Except, I believe he said something about the ghost of Christmas past came for a visit, and he went ahead and confessed because he couldn't live with the guilt, I guess.
So he showed remorse for what he did.
Yes, he took responsibility for what he did, even though he'd actually gotten away with it.
Now, I'm trying to remember, did they ever say what his pilot negligence was?
No, but from what he said to Janeway about being a mercenary for anyone who would pay his bar tab, I kind of got the impression that perhaps he was flying under the influence of alcohol. And it was some sort of like DUI incident that led to him killing those 3 officers.
So it wasn't a mutiny or anything like that?
No. It was pilot negligence.
So when people make that comparison, like, I don't understand. And then, like, when I go back to the original series and the Doomsday Machine and Commodore Decker, when he got his crew killed for, I mean, at that point, I'm not sure it was a mistaken judgment because he thought he was saving his crew. He put them on a planet and they got destroyed. The planet got destroyed with the people on there. But you, like, in the episode, they showed the grief of him feeling very guilty about the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, even when he was screwing around on the Enterprise, trying to take that thing on again, I mean, eventually I think he figured out after he was relieved of duty how that was like a mistake.
Yes, I mean, with him, I think he made the right call initially with his crew down on the planet. I mean, because how could anybody conceive of what that planet killer was until you actually saw what it could do? So, why would he think that he was doing the wrong thing? I mean, given the information that he had, his experience as a Starfleet officer, he made the best decision that he could. So I don't think he did anything wrong in that particular instance. Clearly, when he was trying to go up against that planet killer with the Enterprise, he was making all sorts of mistakes at that point. However, he was definitely suffering from PTSD, given what had happened to the previous crew.
And I seem to remember, if I'm recalling correctly, like Spock even said something like Commodore Deckard said something like, well, you can't let that thing get away, and you've got to take this thing on. And Spock said something like, you tried that once already, and you ended up with a broken ship. And then afterwards, like, he sacrificed himself in that shuttlecraft because he wanted to see if he could destroy that thing from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the point being is that I brought up that because that's another instance where a Starfleet officer made a mistake and was held accountable. And that's between that and then like what I remember of the Star Trek Voyager with Tom Paris. First of all, both Tom Paris and Commodore Decker, well, obviously in James Kirk, they all went to Starfleet Academy.
Yes.
And Michael Burnham, I don't believe, did. Now, I've heard some people say, well, in Discovery's timeline, the era they're in, I don't think Starfleet Academy was founded yet. But wasn't there an episode where they visited Starfleet in Discovery?
This past season, what was that, season 4?
3, I think.
3? Really? Oh, God. Well, anyways, the season where they first jump into the future, there was a scene where all the cadets, well, the current crew, previous cadets, are on the grounds of Starfleet Academy by that tree, reminiscing about the time when they were at the Academy.
Okay.
So it did definitely exist.
But, so that established, with the episode with the tree, that they went down and I guess, reminisced around the tree, whatever that was about. Like, so Starfleet Academy is a thing. So, like, the fact that Michael Burnham didn't go to Starfleet Academy, but she's giving these speeches about, this is what it's like to be Starfleet in the first season, and now going into this season, she's like in the future, the future of Discovery, like, and like they gave her some sort of captaincy of her ship.
Yeah.
And it's like, this person didn't even go to Starfleet Academy, never showed a moment's remorse that I remember for what she did, all those people's lives that she did by disobeying orders twice.
Yes.
The torchbearer, don't go in that area, and then she assaulted her captain. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't understand how I'm supposed to like that character. I mean, to me, it's like, there are certain things, it doesn't matter if it's a female lead, if it's a person of color, like, there are certain qualities that a person has to have for me to say, I respect that character. I'm going to follow that person. I'm going to root for that character.
Yes.
And Michael Burnham, not only the crimes that she committed, she showed zero remorse. She served maybe 6 months in prison, and then she got her commission back. She's giving long speeches about what it's like to be in Starfleet when she is an embarrassment to Starfleet. And then now she's going into this season with, like, she's going to be captain of her own starship.
Yes.
And molding other people under her.
Yes. When it appears that she never even attended Starfleet Academy.
And, like, how? Like, I don't understand how in any way that, like, how can anybody watch this show with this character and decide that, she's anything worth following? I mean, to me, the part is this isn't a real person. This is a written character. Mm-hmm. So the writers of Star Trek Discovery at the very beginning wrote this character with these fatal flaws.
Yes.
It's not that she's this rebel, hey, she's got a bit of rebel streak in her. Like, she's a criminal that won't take responsibility for her actions, and she killed directly one person, and indirectly who knows how many in that war, and she's praised as this great thing when she's a horrible person.
Yes.
So how am I supposed to root for her? When I try to talk to people about this in some areas online, like they start calling me names like I'm a racist or a sexist, and it's like, but I didn't write her that way.
Well, exactly. She is a horrible character. She was poorly written, and for them to expect us to like her after all the crimes that she's committed, the zero remorse that she has shown, those people, they're out of their freaking minds, because you shouldn't like her. She is a bad person.
I mean, did they watch are these people just people who like the idea of Star Trek Discovery and didn't actually watch it? Because I actually did watch it. This wasn't mere Michael Burnham. This was actual Michael Burnham that did this stuff in the first and second episode.
Yes.
And I don't understand. I'm like, to me, it's so weird. It's like there are certain cultural things that as human beings, we should just find distasteful. Like if they had some episode where they were talking about cannibalism, like I would expect, no. I mean, I'm not getting into any sort of cannibalism. You want to write a story about that, great, but I'm not going to watch that. I don't think so. As a human being, I'm repulsed by that topic. So another thing is about loyalty, about following the chain of command, and about killing people. Like, how can people shut all that off and say, well, Michael Burnham's an okay character, but she's not. She's a murderer. She definitely killed the torchbearer. That's a direct murder that she did because she went into a situation that she was told not to do in the first place. And then later on, she assaulted her captain because she thought she was right. And that's the whole theme throughout this entire series is she keeps going from one situation, by she, I mean Michael Burnham.
Yes.
From one situation to another, she always thinks she's right. She always thinks she's right. And every season they try to write her a little bit differently because last season, I mean, I don't know what it was, but they were trying to make her, I guess, humanizing her more. But like she was walking around mumbling. In fact, everybody was mumbling with their acting last season. And Michael Burnham is a toast character. You can't save that. It's a shame because I've watched Sonequa Martin Green, who's the actress who portrays her. I've watched her in interviews. She seems like a sweetie of a person.
Yes.
So, like, the person herself, the actress, seems like a very, very nice person. However, her character is a garbage character.
Yes.
And it has nothing to do with her being a person of color or her being a woman.
Yes.
It has to do with the writers, because I'm blaming the writers, not Sonequa Martin Green. The writers who wrote that character wrote her in such a distasteful way with those events. She didn't even get through one episode before she started down that path of unlikability. And I can't deal with that. I've tried several times to get into Star Trek Discovery. And the Michael Burnham character, which is the center of the whole show, because she's that fatally flawed character, I can't watch the show.